Here we are again.
Hey, here it is. We're rolling.
Oh, and I'm so excited because we have this incredible guest.
Yes.
Been a friend of mine for years. She is the owner and CEO of California Senior Care Consulting. But a lot of people may know Jenny as a realtor, an ice skating coach. What else? Mom for all these years. Oh my gosh,
That's a big
how
one,
I
right?
know
Most
you.
important
Probably the
one.
biggest job, right?
Important. And then you jump into senior care and publishing a book. So Jenny, I can't wait to hear all about it. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. Yeah.
I know,
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited. And the cool thing about Jenny is that we have such a long history of many, many years. And a fun fact about us, we used to play ice hockey together.
We did.
Women in hockey.
Yes.
Neither one of you look like hockey players. So
Looks can be deceiving.
It was a non-checking league, but there might have been a few hips thrown here and there. So you
times.
started your career on the ice with ice skating.
Correct.
How many years have you been coaching now? Long time.
Oh my goodness. I don't want to age
Okay.
myself,
Okay.
but I started coaching in 1996. So, yeah. And before that, I skated professionally. And before that, I competed.
Yes. Oh, wow.
I really have spent most of my life on the ice.
were you an Olympic hopeful or
No.
that type of stuff?
I was. You have to be so at the top of that game to
Yeah, for
obviously
sure.
be an Olympian. And I was a good skater. I think I'm a better coach. But I loved it,
Observation.
and the ice is home. So
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And how many hours, just for knowledge here, because I feel like your day must be like 48 hours with all that you do, but how many hours a week do you spend on the ice?
so now it used to be a full-time job, and now since all of my new things
Your
started,
changes, yeah.
I coach 6 hours a week. So 2 hours a day, 3 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah, which
Just
is
enough
perfect.
to keep you in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Enough
Yeah.
to keep the love there and
Yeah.
to fulfill that. We all have these little containers of things that fill our heart and soul. And
That is very true.
That is
That is
enough
very true.
for me to fill that container.
I
Love that.
love that. So, in all of this, real estate became a journey for you. And are you still in that?
I don't practice real estate, but I do have my license still. So I have my license hung, and I do have old clients that call sometimes. It just
Yeah.
happened this week, and my fiance is a amazing realtor in town. So
Yeah, you refer.
I refer to him. Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
great.
So, let's talk about that. So, you just got engaged
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank
Amazing.
you. I know, so exciting.
to this really amazing man who's been on this great journey with you for a
The
long
biggest
time.
support. I mean, I feel like all of this is really in part to him, and I have him to thank for all of the years of support and encouragement.
That's great.
It makes a difference, right? When
A huge difference.
Yeah, when you're with the right person, and
I can tell you, I can testify to that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we definitely talk about that all the time. If you don't have someone who's walking this journey with you, and you have those hard talks at night, and the all this-
Accountability, as you say, right?
Well, and just talking through things sometimes that this was a huge decision for you to make a career change.
oh my gosh, huge.
I can imagine the hours that you guys talked on this. So tell us about that.
So surprisingly, I feel like I didn't spend a lot of hours talking about it. I tend to anything that I have my mindset on, I tend to kind of keep it inside because I don't want the outside influences of, because it did happen. Like, what are you doing? You're crazy. Because what
Right.
do I know about elder care? I was a figure skater, and like you said, a figure skater, realtor, mom.
Yeah.
And so when I decided to get into this industry, it was a very personal, very emotional decision
Right,
for
that's-
me.
yeah.
And I just didn't want to hear other people, try to talk me out of it.
Right.
I kind of like that. I appreciate that because me as a person is the same way. When I put my mind to something, let's go.
Right. It doesn't matter what everybody
We'll learn.
else says.
We'll take
Right.
it. We'll take it in. But boy,
Like
I like
I will figure it out. I'm resourceful. I'm smart.
Right.
I'm determined. I'm not easily
Suede.
Sway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
So I feel like, Joe was, my fiance was the one person that like,
Catalyst.
yes, like, you
Yeah.
know what, you want this, that's a great idea. That, nobody knows better than you. You just went through what you want to do. And so if we didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about it because, I'm just like in my head, like, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I
Yeah.
have to do. I had a list of a mile long of things I had to do. But
And he knows you well enough now to know that if you said it out loud, you're probably going to do it.
yes, yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
We've learned that, right?
Right. You might know someone like that.
Yes.
So walk us through from the beginning. So your dad, you were very close to your dad. Your dad got sick, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So what happened there?
So, and I will backtrack even a little bit
Okay.
before that. I was very close to my mom as well. So my mom and dad were just the greatest parents. We were extremely close. And my mom passed away 10 years before my dad did. So, and it was very sudden. And she was a nurse. And my dad had a lifetime of health issues, but you would never know. If you met him, you would never know. He was the most amazing. In fact, I think you met him,
did
right?
meet him,
I mean,
yeah.
he was funny and
Yeah.
intelligent, but he had hydrocephalus his whole life, which is water on the brain. So he had 21 brain surgeries in his lifetime.
Oh my gosh.
goodness.
And actually had no short-term memory. A whole nother podcast, you
Right.
guys.
That is a whole nother podcast.
Me growing up
Yeah.
with a parent with no short-term memory. Oh, the things that I got away with. In high school, like, as a teenager. That's it's
funny.
a
God,
whole
what are you-
nother episode.
What are you talking about, Dad?
But
So it's like having Alzheimer's kind of, but forever?
kind of, but like he knew he didn't have a short-term memory. So it's different in the sense that because he was very aware of it, he kept note cards. He
Okay.
and
Practice.
he was just this like ray of light, joy.
Right.
He was happy to be alive because of all of the brain surgeries, and
Right.
he was not expected to live that long. So it was a really amazing way to grow up, to be quite honest. But so the three of us were extremely close, and it was, I think, just really always assumed by everybody that my mom would outlive my dad. And my mom was an RN at Fresno Community, and she had a very unexpected heart attack and passed away.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. And so then it was me and my dad.
Yeah.
And to, I guess, like fill my mom's shoes a little bit in the worrying about his health.
Right.
And technology has come such a long way since those early days of brain surgery. So he, in the last, 15 years of his life, had no issues with anything. But and he went to the gym every day. He was like in shape and handsome, and he was
Yeah.
just this amazing man. So it was really in my head, surprising when he started to decline. Like when his health started to decline,
Right.
I wasn't expecting it.
Right.
Yeah.
And like most people aren't, I feel like we're in a little bit of denial usually about our parents and our loved ones getting older. And
That's not happening to us.
yeah,
And I think possibly with dads especially that they're almost like your superhero.
yes.
And you think, oh, he's strong and he's gone through all these challenges and he's just going to live forever.
I mean, that's,
Yeah.
there's something, and that's not right.
Right.
But there's
Yeah, well,
something
Hopeful hearts, right?
correct, I guess, hopeful hearts. And it's, he's, he is your Superman. And so I think when his health started to decline, and because of the hydrocephalus, that the symptoms that he was presenting, the doctors kept looking at hydrocephalus, like looking at his shunt, looking at like that lane, and it was not that. So he ended up kind of like declining pretty quickly, and I think I saw it enough to be concerned, which is the biggest red flag. Like
Right.
now that I know, now that I'm in the
Right.
industry, once you have
Looking back.
concern, there
Right.
needs to be some serious conversations, and
But that's hard
changes, but-
because all of a sudden the roles changed. Now you're almost acting like the parent and they're
Right.
almost acting.
The shift.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's very hard. I mean, it's a very hard shift. And I think it's really hard for a lot of people.
I couldn't imagine it being easy at any time. I mean, the
Right.
sense of that role change and also to tippy-toeing into how that would affect them personally as a person, because God forbid the day comes,
Well,
that's,
and I mean, I've had to get on my dad just about wearing sunscreen, and he gets, upset about it. It's like these are, bigger issues that they're
you got to be aware
trying
of.
to rely on you for, and
Exactly.
that can't be easy. So,
Right. And they don't want to rely on you
No,
for that.
they don't.
They don't even want to bother you with it. I mean,
right.
at least my dad did not. It was always, Jen, I'm fine. Jen, I'm fine. And he's so endearing. There's a little bit of that, the short-term memory, not having one. So I would call him, in the mornings, like, hey, Dad, did you take your medication this morning? Oh, I did. And I'm like, will you go look at, I had a little pill
Yeah,
box
yeah.
set up for him. Will you go look at your pill box and just make sure? No, Jen, I took it. I took it with breakfast. I'm like, okay, but just do me a favor and just go look at your pill box. And, he'd kind of say, okay. And he'd walk over there and then he'd get back on the phone and go, well, I am remiss and chagrined. I did not take my medication this morning. I mean, it was just, and he really believed he did.
Right. Yeah.
So there was that aspect of it. He didn't even know
right.
if he was okay or not. Like in his head,
It's kind of like a
was okay.
teenager. I clean
so
my room.
exactly. And I went to doctor's appointments with him, and he'd be talking to the doctor, and I would just be like, okay, at what point do I
Step in.
interject?
Yeah.
Because what he's saying isn't right. Like, but he believes it to be right. So
Right.
that it was a little bit complicated, a little tricky.
Right.
But I kind of feel now that I've worked with so many families that there's a lot of stories like that. Not the same exact thing, of course, but a lot of challenges, a lot of different
Oh, the variation.
dynamics.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we all have something, and our families they're all different. And
Right.
whether you're an only child or you have
Many
a
siblings.
lot of siblings,
Yeah.
correct?
But it sounds like you picked up the caring heart that your mom was as a servant to being a nurse. I mean, the sense of the role is just caring for people. Different way, different place, but at the same time,
That's how it
Similar.
feels now,
Yeah.
which is surprising to me because I didn't know I had that in me until then. It was never on my radar. I mean, I've always cared about people, of course, and I
Right.
love
You've
people,
always
and
had a caring heart.
I've but I just don't think I was aware of it.
right.
And moving into that role, I feel like I kind of came into myself and started really, then especially understanding how amazing my mom was.
Right.
They were married many, many years. So for her to take care of him, take care of me, work full time, drive me to the ice rink every day after working 12 and a half hour shifts. And I never knew it was hard. So
Right.
that was really,
Short-term memory loss is very taxing on the caregiver, spouse, whoever is closest. I mean, my grandma had Alzheimer's, and my mom would go, she was the one helping with their bills and doing all those different things. And just having the same conversation, I know short-term memory is a little bit different, but if you can't remember, you can't remember. Right?
Correct.
It's just a,
it can be for the caregiver. It's really, it can be frustrating, and you love that person. So you don't want, then you feel guilty because you're frustrated,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
it's this vicious cycle. I remember one time specifically, I think it was in high school, and my mom and dad had gotten into an argument, like married
do.
couples do, right?
Humans.
And just a few minutes later, my mom walked through the kitchen, and my dad kind of like tapped her on, on the bottom and was like, "Hey, honey." And she looked at him and kept walking. And he looked at me and he's like, "What's wrong with your mom?" And I said, "Well, you guys are in a fight." So like,
just so you know.
and he was like,
Hey, maybe I should try that.
That's kind of good, actually. That's a good part.
right?
Of that.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Right. Goldfish. What's that?
right.
Finding Nemo.
Yeah, exactly.
gosh.
Yeah. So you went through this process with your dad, and at the end, did you end up having to bring care into his home to help him?
Initially, yes. I brought care in. And then, within about 3 months of that, it just became really evident that he needed more care. He needed 24-hour care. And you guys, 24-hour care at home is like, it's like $20,000
Oh,
a month.
yeah.
I mean, who can afford that, right?
That's
Like it was,
That's one thing our world does not fix, and especially with the people that we will need to care for at the end of their life cycle, how that looks is scary, scary, scary.
And I don't know if you'll talk about this later as you get into this, but what I learned with my grandma was my grandma wanted to be so prepared. She had insurance. But the insurance, there's like loopholes on all insurance. So
Oh yeah, read the fine
whatever
print.
the level of care that she needed wasn't covered on the insurance. And
no.
here she paid into that for years and years and years and years. And
that's-
my
Long-term
parents
disability.
were so frustrated because they're like, what just happened here? You know, I think in the end when she needed the extreme level, it kicked in, but it was like the beginning, I can't remember all the details, but it's like there's so many things that people don't realize when you're caring for an older person
so true.
that you're dealing with.
It's so true. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And I
Right.
feel like none of us have that on our mind until we kind of go through it.
Right.
And so
And it's an everyday thing. That's the unique thing, right?
everyday thing. I mean, I get multiple calls a day from new people
People.
that are either just starting the journey or have been catapulted to the end of the journey without the baby steps that take you there. I mean, it's
Right.
really, there's a lot of different ways to get there. And most people are like not prepared at all. And me included that when I, back then,
Yeah.
Right.
didn't
no
know
clue.
anything about it.
Well, and the other thing that I just thought of, actually, I was thinking about this the other night because I was thinking about, I was 34 when I had my youngest, right? So when I'm 84, she'll be 50. Well, she won't even be retired. Like a lot of people used to have kids at 20.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they were at least retired to help care for their parents. My kids will be nowhere near that.
Right.
So what
And where will they
happens-
be in the country at that point too?
Totally.
True.
So that's a whole different situation I think we're running into as parents are having kids later and later in life. There's that gap that needs to be filled, and probably their kids won't be filling it.
True. And even if you're not retired, what if you are older? And, you know, my dad couldn't, he got to a point where he couldn't get like out of bed himself. And I was at the house and I was saying, Dad, you have to help. Like I can't
Yeah.
just lift you. And he was like, I'm trying.
Right.
I
can't
this
do
is I can't do it. And I
Aw.
thought, oh my gosh, like how quickly that
That
came.
revelations of yeah.
And so, and I had a caregiver that was coming at like 8 a.m. And so I said, Dad, I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to wait until she gets here. But we can both help you. And I just felt, I felt so bad, you know, and that was just you feel so helpless.
Right.
Like
I could imagine.
it's scary and it's sad. And you're fearful of now what is going to happen. Like,
What's next?
yeah, because I guess the writing just starts to, you see it, like you
Yeah.
just know where this is leading. And you guys, up until the time he passed, I really thought, well, maybe he'll get better. And now like it's so eye opening because now I work with so many families, and that's just once
Not
they
usually
start
the reality,
No,
yeah.
once they start to decline, I mean, they might have good and bad days, but the trajectory is
Right.
it's just going.
Direction's the direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, and don't you feel that that is something that is the hardest part to go through, but then now turn it into a business. So you get to revisit this daily. And like you said,
I do.
and bless your heart that you can
Right.
continue that direction, because that is a skill. That is a learned and earned skill.
You know, and even though I go through it daily with other families, like I feel it every day when they call and we have those initial conversations. I feel like I'm right back there with my dad. I'm right back
Brings
to
you right
the
back.
overwhelming, drowning feeling of like, what do I do? And this, just the the sadness of that realization. And so sometimes, oftentimes actually, the person I'm speaking to on the phone will start to cry, and I am on
Right.
the other line,
You're involved.
very
Yeah.
teary-eyed myself because
Right.
I remember, and
You're an angel in this case, because you still feel it and then can become hard to it, because that's a big part of what they deal with.
And what I would say, Jenny, is I hope that you keep that
Yeah.
compassion.
I do
Absolutely.
too. That's
Right?
I
Because
do.
people need that. I think it's very easy. I mean, how often have we had a doctor and they come in and you talk about bad bedside manner, right? Because they're so jaded. They do this every day.
Right.
And I think when you're the person that's on the other side of that, you want someone to feel your pain. You want them to acknowledge that like that pain is real, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That is a
That
skill
compassion.
to help
Yeah.
be compassionate to people. I hope you don't ever lose that.
Me too. Thank you. I really hope that as well. I
Yeah.
feel like I
You
won't,
won't.
though,
You
because
won't.
it's just
Yeah.
so deep. That emotion is so deep, and to be able to be there in that way, to show up for somebody
Yes.
else, and to not only kind of know, because we all have our own experiences, but and I
Right.
feel like I don't want to say I know what you're going through,
Right.
but this is how I felt, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I felt so guilty, and then people just go, yes, I feel so guilty, and I'm like, I know why, like we shouldn't. You're on the phone right now. You're crying because you're coming from a place of love. You are
Right.
making decisions with your heart that are hard decisions, and you know that these are the right decisions for your loved one's health and safety.
Right.
But you also know most of the time you're making a decision that they don't really necessarily want.
Right. Well, your
And
confirmations and guidance is big, and you still having that commitment, that compassion will make people believe that you're taking them in the right direction,
right.
because it does let you back. I mean, it does help you
Yeah.
a lot, I'm sure.
But I think the biggest thing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when people go into a care home or a nursing home, they're losing their independence completely. And I
Yeah.
think that is so hard for them
Oof.
to accept. That's such a huge step.
It's so hard being the person that makes that decision and that
Right.
facilitates that change in their life,
Right.
because you feel like you're taking away their independence. You feel like if somebody wants to live out their whole life in their home,
Right.
and you're making a decision where that isn't going to be the case,
Yeah.
it's just it just you carry a tremendous amount of guilt. And even though I loved my dad more than anybody, and I was doing what was right for him,
For sure.
Right.
I still felt so sad and guilty
Right.
for making those decisions.
For sure.
Yeah.
And in his case, and in probably in a lot of memory care ish cases, that him coming to my house wouldn't have been a solution. I still worked. My daughter played travel soccer. I was out of town all the time.
Right.
And because of the memory loss, he would have not been safe in my house either.
Right.
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 So he needed to be somewhere that there were eyes on him 24 hours a day. And that was hard too, because I guess I really felt bad that I couldn't be the one taking care of him.
Right.
Well, and it doesn't, where you're taking in them doesn't look like anything they've experienced in their life too, right? I mean, these spaces are intend to keep them safe, but also too is very confining in a lot of ways. So I can imagine. I had an uncle that had the same scenario. He went through some pretty serious illness, and we had to do extended care and then take him to a home, and you just feel terrible because you feel a person that you knew what they looked like 6 months, a year, or 5 years before to look nothing like that moment. So then
Right.
I could understand it's
Yep. So you had to make the decision to put him into a home, which is the hardest decision any child, I think, will have to make for their parent. And how long was he in the home?
So he actually was only in the home for about 45 days before he passed.
Oh.
And that decision to take him there, it was probably 6 months later than it should have been.
Right.
But of
Right,
course,
yeah.
I just
Nurtured
kept
it along.
thinking he's gonna get better.
Right.
I
Rebound.
don't know, but it's common.
So hard. I
It's
know
common.
that is. I think you are correct. It is common, and a lot of times it takes an incident.
Yes.
Someone
Right.
starts a
fall.
little fire because they left the stove on or whatever, or a fall.
a fall
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Right.
And so often people wait too long.
That's
They wait for
exactly
the
right.
incident.
I would say most of my clients, that call me, have waited too long. But that's okay.
Right.
Right. Right.
And at least they're on that path. And it's hard to make that decision, and it's really hard too when you're your parents' baby. And I really felt like I couldn't be the one to tell my dad, this is what I've decided. This is what's
Right.
best for you. This is
Yeah,
what we're
yeah.
going to do.
Making those decisions,
Right?
for
Because
sure.
he's going to look at me like, what? How do you know? Like you're not a professional. Like
Right.
you're not the authority on this topic. But and I feel like, well, now I am. But so I called his doctor and just explained to the doctor's office what was happening, what was going on, and I said, I want to bring him in, and if you could just help me out here and let him know that this is where he's going to go until he's strong enough to go home. And
Good way to put it.
it was really, I realize it's a little manipulative. It's but it's a nice, like a good white lie. Like it was
Yeah.
a kind, good thing for him.
Right.
And I feel like it gave him hope
Right.
because nobody ever said, you're going to this place until you die. Like you're going here forever. You'll never be the same. You're not going to get better. It was always, if
There's hope at the
when
end of
you,
it. There's a
when you're
rainbow here.
strong enough to walk securely, to be at home, to be able
Right.
to do some things that you were able to do. And I mean, this happened so fast. So it was literally just like 60 days ago, and in his head, he thought he would too. So I would go visit him every day. And he's like, I'm working really hard, Jen. I have my physical therapist. I'm working really hard to get my strength back. And I'm like, you know what, Dad, I love that. And I'm so
pushing.
proud of you. And
Right.
so having hope, I think, was really
Right.
important for him.
Absolutely.
And his
That was a
mindset.
great way to do that,
Absolutely.
actually. Yeah, wow.
And so I do try to, educate my families that are struggling with how to,
present that.
that, this is what I did. It felt right.
Right.
Yeah, it's your call, but yeah, and that guidance is important. I mean, that's unique, and I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about how, we've done it with our teenagers. It's like calling their teacher and saying, "Hey, we need your help
honestly,
here with
it's the
this,"
same,
because they don't want to
yeah.
hear it from us or that scenario. It's the exact same thing in reverse
Right.
role. So,
Yeah.
more than appreciate that, and then a lot tougher decision, obviously.
Totally, yeah. So I did a little research before you came, and only 4.5% of elderly people in the U.S. will ever go to a nursing home. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, that seems pretty accurate. I feel like there's more that will go short term, like to maybe they've have a fall,
rehab or
a
something,
rehab,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And but that's about right. The
Yeah.
4.5 that will end their life
Their
in
life, yeah.
one, and out of that, only I think 20% are prepared for that,
Right.
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
sad.
And according to a poll in 2023, 70% of Americans are uncomfortable with the idea of going, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, I would think the
And-
number would be greater.
On average, Americans gave nursing homes a D+ rating for quality care. And you are here to change that, right?
Well, yes, I hope so.
Yeah.
But there is a difference between nursing homes and assisted living homes.
Yes.
So nursing homes are, I feel like our parents' generation and my grandparents' generation, they just think when you get old, you go to a nursing home and it's really sad. It smells.
Yeah.
There's people screaming, yelling. I mean, it's just really
Right.
a not a good environment.
Right.
Yeah, healthy.
And so back then, there were not assisted living homes. So elder care has really changed. And you'll see it when, if the time comes and you guys have to be in that position where you start looking,
Right.
you guys, there are like assisted living homes that are resort life. I mean, I am telling you.
Maybe not the parody we're looking for, but we'll work with it.
like, yeah, you guys,
it's our
maybe your
next
next
venture.
venture.
Right,
living.
resort life.
Yeah.
Assisted living.
I mean, places I walk into and I'm like, I would move in next week if
Yeah.
If
We've
I
experienced
could.
that with Tracy's aunt and uncle, and how they've gone to an assisted living home, and they were like, "Ooh, this is pretty bougie."
right?
Yeah.
It's, I mean, really, and these people are I mean, not only getting taken care of, but they're thriving.
Yes.
They have friends. They're going on trips. They're doing things they couldn't do before because maybe they couldn't drive,
Confined.
or
Right.
they didn't have people to talk to. They were maybe a little bit more, lonely. And I mean, there was one assisted living in town that I think like 2 years ago, the residents went skydiving.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
love
I
that.
mean, obviously not all of them, but like a good handful of residents went skydiving.
Wow.
Yes.
Makes me flash back to George Bush jumping out of a plane. Yeah.
And it was on the local news, and
Amazing.
And there's so many good assisted living places in town and across the nation. So I feel like really I feel very blessed that I know which ones are good.
Yeah.
I know which ones I would confidently recommend.
Promote.
I guess, and also getting back to my story, I used to own one. So because I owned an assisted living home, I know the different sides of it. I feel like there's Title 22 is what governs, elder care, assisted living, nursing homes. Skilled nursing is now the proper name for nursing home is called skilled nursing. But
Skilled nursing.
so I know the like back end of it with the education and the laws, and then I know the side from being a daughter, being a family member.
Right,
That
both
what
sides of
what
the
do I
fence.
want for my loved one,
Yeah.
and how do I want to walk in and feel, and then I also know it from the point of now helping other families, and
For sure.
it's really this, like, I feel like I have this well-rounded kind of understanding about
Right.
all of these different places.
Well, I think real estate would probably help you too. Just
And real estate-
understanding homes and flow and all the different combinations of
Right.
things you see. You're creating these spaces for these people to
Right.
live in.
It felt like such a perfect marriage. When my dad's health declined and he was in the assisted living, and I didn't know back then, but so he was in a memory care facility because he had no short-term memory. And had I had it to do over again, that would not be where I would place him.
Where to place
I
him.
just didn't know. So
My grandma was in a memory care facility, and they are very difficult to be in.
it's sad.
It is,
It's hard to find a true memory care that you feel really good about,
Yeah.
because there's just different levels of different stages of that of
And
the
what they're dealing with.
diseases. Yeah. So I would not have placed him there, and immediately, I would say within the first 3 weeks, I knew that. I thought, oh, this isn't the right place for him, and he really wanted to go home, of course, and I had the guilt, and I'm the baby, so I wanted him to go home, and my wheels started turning. Like, you talk about maybe like entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Okay, so we can't afford for him to be at home and get 24-hour care at the $20,000 a month.
Sure.
What if I turned his home into an assisted living, and that 24-hour care was shared by other people?
Yeah.
Great idea.
And
Awesome.
so
It is entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I started doing some research. The process, it was a little lengthy, and I thought, well, I want this to be, done quickly.
Right.
So I contacted somebody that already was that did it, and said, do you want to use my dad's house? Do you want to rent his house and start doing it there? You're already licensed, and so
Interesting.
so they
yeah.
and they said yes.
A great
And
thought.
that was my first, thought was, okay, just get him home and have this done.
Familiar
and
spaces, familiar places.
Yes,
Yeah, that's awesome.
exactly.
That's a
And
great
so
idea.
I proposed this to him, and at first he said, "Oh, Jen, I don't want other people living in my home." And I said, "Well, it's that, or you can stay here." And he's like, "You're right. Good point. Like, good point. Okay, let's do this." And so he was really excited, and I just said, "You know what, Dad? Before you could go home, we just need to do a few things to the home, like,
Right.
as far as like to get it ready for what it was going to be
Yeah,
used
for
for."
sure.
And so we started that, doing the the bars and
right.
just some things
All
that
the
had to be
ADA.
Safety,
Yeah, exactly.
ADA stuff and the requirements, yeah.
And his health just declined so rapidly. I think he passed away like 3 weeks later.
Oh.
And so to go from that, like, oh, you're right, Jen, let's do this, and being excited, to him passing so soon after that was really sad, but also a blessing. You know, I really felt like his quality of life was not what he wanted. It wasn't ideal. It wasn't even good anymore, you know, like things just started to
Right.
decline so rapidly. And so that the day he went to the hospital, I was with him all day, and it just was very unexpected, to be perfectly honest. It was a very unexpected like change in him.
Right.
And we went to the hospital, and I thought I couldn't believe what the doctors were saying, like call the family, and I'm thinking, what? No, he's what are you talking about? And then he did bounce back, and the doctors were thinking, they told me, they said, I can't believe he's still with us. And I mean, this was the same day, but
Wow.
they just thought he was like actively passing away, I think. And then he was back to joking around and talking and like laughing, and they were talking about discharging him with physical therapy. And so I thought, okay, I went home to shower, and on my way back, I prayed. And I just prayed for, if this is his time, to do it quick,
Yeah.
don't
Right.
make him suffer. Like,
Right.
Right.
nobody wants to see that from a loved one. And so I got back to the hospital, and he was sleeping, and I was able to stay the night with him and kind of sleep next to him, and he passed away that night. And it was really, very, of course, when your loved one passes away, and especially he was my person.
Right.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
it's the saddest, like the most emotional, gut wrenching. You just feel like you're never going to be okay again.
Right.
But also, I was a little thankful to God that
Yeah.
that's
For him.
yeah, exactly for
Yeah.
him, right? For me,
Right.
it was just
Well, all of us
Terrible,
would
but-
dream to just not wake up one day.
Right.
That really would be the day, right? I mean, if that had to
Right.
go, I mean, because all the tragic ways that life is presented to us, and yeah, I can imagine that's relieving, I guess, in some ways, for sure.
and I really felt that. I felt conflicted in that, but in the grief, and
Right.
but I was thankful that he didn't come out of the hospital and then
Yeah.
suffer
Suffer through,
more,
yeah.
right? I mean, that it's hard to
Right.
watch, your loved one
sure.
suffer. So I
Right.
was thankful for that. But that really surprisingly sparked my desire to still open and use, my
house,
childhood
yeah.
home, his home, as an assisted living. But since now we weren't under this, like time crunch,
Right.
I decided I wanted to do it myself. So I went to school in LA.
I was
and,
just going to ask you how that came together.
and I went to school in LA and got my license to be an administrator, and then took my state test, and then I had the state license the home as a licensed care facility, and so that process took about a year and a half, and that's where I think people were like, "What are you doing?"
Right.
Because were you doing real
Crazy.
estate too?
I was, and I was coaching,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
travel
And
Still
soccer,
a mom.
and yes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly,
Still have a life.
and
Yeah.
So it did seem crazy, but I felt it. Like I just had this feeling in my gut that this is what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why. It didn't make sense, but it was something I was so invested in that many times during that year and a half, hurdles, roadblocks, I'm
Right,
like,
right.
nope, just one more thing to get over. Like, it's fine. It's going to be fine. I'm
Right.
like, it's still happening.
So, moniker, right? Resorting to success.
Right.
You've taken
the
all these things and all these obstacles, and you just found the best way that you felt to resort to that direction. That's exactly why we're here, because
Right.
you're a great example of what that looks like for us. Is people need to try every day. I mean, it's a choice.
There's
we
always
use.
going to be obstacles in life, so
Yep,
we
yep,
have to be
for
able
sure.
to overcome them, or we won't get anywhere. So-
Absolutely.
and I think when you have, you're probably doing this in a way for your dad, right? This is like a, hey, I don't want another family to go through what we went through. I want, and that was your driving force behind it.
And
think.
not consciously, but 100% now I can see that.
Yeah.
That now going through it all and where I am today with the experiences that I went through and
Right.
I very much recognize that yes, that was my way, I think, to grieve and
Right.
to deal with and like help myself in losing him. And then I did not expect what happened to happen was I completely fell in love with elder care. I thought I was just going to open up this, great home and make sure that the families and the residents
You could help.
were
Yeah.
well taken care of and that I was there for them. I just wanted to provide a space.
Right.
And I fell in love with it. Once my first resident moved in and oh my gosh, you guys, it was just really
Fulfillment.
magical, fulfilling.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, I can't even describe the feeling I had. And, and then of course COVID hit and things
Oof.
things became very difficult and challenging in elder care.
Right.
I realized that having the home and opening it was something I needed to do, and it brought this into my life that was very unexpected. But then I also realized I didn't need to own the home. I wanted it there. I was so proud of it. It was my baby.
Right.
But it wasn't where I was supposed to be. And so I had a decision to make on, selling the home. I had gotten a really great job offer from Heinz Hospice. And I thought, because I still wasn't exactly sure where my place was in elder care, but I knew I wanted to help families. And so I sold the home. It took me a long time to find the right buyer. I spoke
You filtered that.
Oh my gosh, yes, because
That's
this
good,
was my baby.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to leave it like you found it for life.
And
purposes.
is it an elder
Yes.
care home still?
Yes, absolutely.
I
And
love
I'm,
that.
involved, and
Yeah.
there's a bench outside of the front door that, has my parents' name on it, and
That's awesome.
right, in loving memory, So
Right.
I feel like it's just a wonderful gift that their home is being used
Right.
for this, and I stop by there every once in a while. I follow them on social media, of course, and they're just doing a wonderful job. And it makes my heart so happy. Like, every time I just see their smiling faces. And so I worked in hospice for a year, really trying to figure out what do I want to do? Like, what is the right role for me in
the
this
next step?
industry? How can
Right.
I be the most helpful? And it was like, really kind of like divine intervention. I was sleeping. I woke up. It was middle of the night, and I clearly heard placement. And I thought, what? Placement? What? What? Placement? And then I knew what it meant. Placement, like help people with the placement of their loved ones. And it just made sense. And I thought, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that before?
Right.
I was a realtor for 20 years.
Right.
That
Placement.
Right.
make
Placement,
sense.
yeah.
Placement. So then I it took a little while to get there because I did love my job at Heinz Hospice, but I started those wheels in motion and did my research, of course, on now then how to move forward in that role, and then I created California Senior Care Consulting, and
Wow.
it's just been that when things align, I mean, nothing can stop you. And it's just
Right.
been magic after that.
Love
just
that.
one thing after another.
Love that.
Like that synergy, like you're
Yeah.
doing the right thing and things just fall into place.
Tracy and I talk about this all the time. We say life has chapters. And sometimes
Yes.
chapters are long, sometimes chapters are short. But the fun part is that if you recognize those moments to turn the page, and it maybe is a new chapter. And it sounds like that's what you did. So it'll be interesting as the story continues for you.
Yes, right. I feel like I started the company a year ago, and it feels like I've been doing it forever.
Right.
And in that short period of time, the amount of families I've been able to help, and the programs that I've learned about that help financially, so
Great.
I really didn't even expect that part of it, but to be able to guide and educate not only families but also like all medical staff from skilled nursing facilities on about how this specific program works. It's called the Assisted Living Waiver, and it does pay for the majority of assisted living if you
Wow.
qualify, of course.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I would say 50% of what I do every day is is that,
Financial
it's
help.
it's financial help,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
well, that's got to be the biggest hump, as you said. I mean,
it's the
it's a
future
scary
of
thing,
placement,
right?
because
But
like
that's
we
a
said,
huge struggle for so many families. And I would imagine a lot of people stay where they're at because they can't afford to go anywhere else. Like
Right.
they're at home,
Uh-huh.
they know they need help, but they have to stay there because they can't afford it. So, what a blessing you are to people that are trying to figure out how to care for a loved one. That's awesome, Jenny.
it is such a blessing, and I feel blessed, for myself.
sure.
I know I'm helping other people, but I feel like it's just helping me live my life in a way I wanted to live my life. So it's a blessing to
Amazing,
me.
amazing.
I love that. Okay, so we have plenty more to talk about, but I always do a little game, a little word association
I'm
game.
going to drink of water for this.
We're doing it a little late in the show, but I'm going to say a word, and you are going to say one word, the first word that comes to your mind, just very quickly.
Okay.
Okay, love,
Peace. I don't know why that came to my mind, but it was the first thing that came to my mind. So
Okay.
How do we do it?
grief,
tears.
pivot,
Honestly, the first thing that came to mind, that's an ice skating term.
yes, it is.
I guess it would be.
But pivot, great.
Great, that is great. Yeah, support,
Love,
nurse,
mom.
succeed,
Fulfillment,
joy,
happiness.
loss,
Okay.
soar,
Soar. I immediately thought heart. That's the
Yeah.
first thing I thought of.
inspire.
Wishful. Yeah, that's would. I think wishful that you can inspire anybody, right?
Yeah.
So that I'm going to tell you that right there. So Tracy started this when we started our podcast, and it's been a fun little tool for us to get to know our guests and friends and see how people respond. And you can see their eyes and you can see their responses. Sometimes we get little sentences, sometimes we get a word, sometimes we just get an emotion. Fabulous, fabulous, because you
love
can
your
see your
answers.
person as you're talking about this, is that you are that inspire, soaring type of person that is entrepreneurial, caring. That's a big piece.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
But your whole life, I mean, I've known you for many, many years, and you've had a lot of obstacles in your life, single mom, all of these different things. I feel like you've always inspired people with your person, with your personality, with your drive, with your joy. So I hope you know that about yourself, that
Thank
you really
you.
do exude that. I've always felt that about you. And here we are all these years
You're gonna make me
later.
cry.
And you are still that way. You're still that same person that I knew. I mean, maybe you look a little different, not in the hockey uniform, but but I really love what you're doing. It's been so cool to hear about that. And another cool thing that you're doing. How did this book come about? Let's talk about this.
Oh my gosh, who would have thought? Not me,
Good leader.
right?
Yeah.
Not me.
Add author to your list of amazingness.
No, it was just a really kind of amazing opportunity. I was asked to be a part of this book, and based on the story, and the title kind of says it all: Unexpected Leader, and it
Yeah.
is. I'm a co-author, and so everybody that has authored, a chapter in the book, found themselves a leader in an industry or in a position that came unexpected. And obviously, for me, elder care
Right.
couldn't have been more unexpected. So, yeah, very. I guess right time, right place. But like I said, when you're doing the right thing, things align.
They do.
And it just was a huge blessing and honor to be asked to be in that book.
We find that in leadership is a big conversation for us a lot on this in this podcast, because we feel that leadership spawns from passion.
Absolutely.
And you're a great example of that. I mean, it's so it's unexpected. We talk about our accidental business. It's because
Right.
of
I was thinking that
my
too.
passion for anything with wheels, right?
Right.
So then we bring the capacity of running the business over here, and me being the passion behind it. And it's a great energy for us. But the same concept for yourself is that passion, and that passion creates that leadership. And you're very articulate, so you're able to expand on how to show people how to do these things right. And placement, you're growing through the business, so it's pretty amazing.
And I feel so. Next week we're actually going to talk about navigating grief. And I think so many people go through these natural steps in life. I mean, and they are not easy. When, I read somewhere that when love is so great, grief is also so great, right? And so
It's really
it's
beautifully
really,
said.
it is really a product of love. And so for you to be helping families deal with the love that they have for their parents or for a loved one, that's really a wonderful thing that you're doing.
Thank you. I feel, I mean, I know I've said this a few times, but I do feel blessed. And it is funny that through, I kind of feel like when life gives you lemons, they say make lemonade.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you can also open up a lemonade stand, right? Like, and then,
Right.
and then,
That's us. We like that.
help,
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of people. So,
Right. So Jenny, how can people find you?
well, I have a website. Yes, yes, of course.
And what is it?
CASCC.com or I'm sorry, .me, M-E, like Microsoft Exchange. So it stands for California Senior Care
Senior care.
Okay.
Consulting.
Okay.
So CA is the California Senior Care Consulting, .me, and all my information's on the website, phone numbers, emails. I am always happy to answer phone calls just to give advice, just to help navigate.
Sure.
It's free. There's no charge for my time like that. I really, truly just want to help people.
Wow.
So how does that work? Because obviously everybody has to make a living, right? So if somebody calls you, let's just talk through that process. So somebody calls you, they have all these questions, they're trying to place their loved one. So you help them find a facility.
Correct.
Do they pay you?
The families don't.
Okay.
It's kind of like I equate it to real estate, being a buyer's agent.
Okay.
Well, before this new law
Before the
changed.
new law,
yes.
yeah.
Ay, ay, ay.
But where I get a referral fee from the facility.
Okay.
So, so it's free to the families, and I'm contracted with every single assisted living and memory care in Fresno, and I just figure out after talking to families, really there's some really important things there between wants and needs,
Right.
and whether it be demographic, economic, and then level of
Right.
care, all of those things come into play. And after meeting with them, I usually I can see where they fit in.
Yeah.
I
Pre-filter.
yeah, I can tell oh, this person would be so great at this place, and I'll give them kind of my top 3 or 5, and I just like a realtor would, I take them there or I meet them there. We go, we ask the questions, we take a tour, we look at the rooms, we go kind of through the activities calendars, and
Nice.
and then from there, the family typically makes a decision, or the resident themselves make the decision of where they feel like they fit in best.
That's
Wow.
nice because you're emotionally attached, but you're not emotionally involved or financially involved in the business necessarily. So it allows you to give a clear thought.
Exactly.
People don't get to not being sold, for lack of a better description, in terms of
Right.
where they're walking into.
That's exactly right, because it doesn't matter to me,
Right.
Where they choose.
where they choose. Exactly.
Someplace safe is important.
Yes. And so I feel like, and then after they, maybe see 3 to 5, sometimes they see more, but being able to discuss, the reality, and also I have, most of the time I have other families that live there now, like I have, or other
Right.
families
Sure.
that
Yeah.
have gone there, and so I can
Examples.
kind of tell them their experience, and just help them make the right decision.
Yeah, I love that. So, is there anything else that you would like people to know about what you're doing, or something that most people don't know that you want to share?
I mean, honestly, I think the one thing that I would want people to know is have the early conversations, like the difficult conversations while you can. I've already told my kids, like, listen,
This is how I want it to go.
when my health is declining, or if I have dementia or Alzheimer's, or I want to be in a home, and I realize that when I'm at that stage, I might say something different. But right now, in my clear thinking, I want you to know that I want you to,
Right.
put me in a facility. And I did get long-term care insurance. And I'm like, and pluck my chin hairs, like, please. Like, I might fight you on that when I'm,
Right.
90, but pluck my chin hairs, like, just like, but it's
That's not a picture that I put together.
But you know what? Nobody says it, but it is so true.
so true.
That is exactly right. That's the real Jenny right there. I like that. I would say lipstick, mascara, pluck the chin hairs,
Oh.
and dress me in animal print.
yes,
Yeah, I was just gonna
100%.
say,
You'll need
where's the
animal
animal
print
print in this deal?
slippers.
Yeah.
But that's, have those conversations now while you can, and it will help alleviate some of the guilt that you feel
Right.
about having to go through it because you already know. And
Right.
honestly, I have on my website, I have a form that has like a guide to that, like ask these questions. So, and everybody's on the same page, whether it be financial, there's a financial part, at what point, like if somebody has a fall and they can't walk or they can't get to the bathroom, do you want your kids changing your diaper? I mean,
Right.
do you want your kids showering you?
Right.
No, not really. Like and I don't know. I kind of feel like the best role that we can be as kids is love and
Yeah,
to
support.
go, and just love them. It's hard to be a caregiver because there's conflict and
Right.
it changes the relationship.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I kind of feel like not for everybody.
Right.
Everybody has their own story and their own circumstance, but for the most part, I feel like the best care is going to be by a professional, and you can visit every day and you can stay hours and visit, but leave the messy stuff up to a professional and just
Right.
love your parents, and that would be the one, my
Right.
advice now.
Because I think you don't want to have that. Like it took a long time for my mom to get past the image of what she went through with her mom, the caregiver role, and the kind of seeing her frustrations and all of that, because she was the one dealing with so much of that. Even though she was in a home, my mom was like the main person that. Anyways, and it gets very complicated, right? But I always say
And taxing.
when my grandma was in a home care facility, and we would go over there, Trevor and I, he was little, and we would go over there and play. And I have the best memories of her during that time because we had such a different relationship. I got to have the fun. We got to just go there, and I had this little cute 4-year-old, and he was so adorable. And so, those are the memories that I have even when she was sick. So I think you're saying let everybody kind of have still good memories while somebody else is taking care of them.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that makes the most sense, but
does.
Yeah.
I understand that different and culturally different, there's
Right.
different.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking
Expectations and-
recently, just in the last few minutes. I was thinking about uniquely how cultures in
Right.
some parts of our world, and even in the United States, they'll take care of the elderly of their own, right? They take care of their family unit, and I think a lot of cultures, health wise, a lot of older folks do just pass through that moment. But when it becomes more intense and those needs, wow, and
Right.
And I think it used to be different when both people didn't work, or
Yeah. That's
if
exactly
you have
right.
a house full of people, because
That's
that's your
exactly right.
culture, you're able to take care of people. But
life demands.
But
Yeah.
if two people are working outside the home, like you said, you were still juggling a child. So
The American
very
lifestyle
different.
looks different now.
Yeah.
It is. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
different, and it always surprises me when I see, I get those phone calls from families, and like their elder loved one has been discharged from the hospital and can't walk, and now the family is expected to take care of them. Well, they don't know what to do. Like they have no idea. Like how do you how do you get them up? How do you get them to the
Yeah.
bathroom? Or
What's the process?
yeah,
What's
like
the-
I mean, it's
Right.
it's really sad that there's not as maybe more education or more training that
Right.
would go into that. Like send an aide over to the house for the first week to teach the family.
Right.
No, that doesn't happen. You know, I mean,
My goodness,
it-
right.
it's so weird to me that it's just setting people up to fail for taking care of a loved one.
Exactly.
Right.
And the burnout is real. You know that like
Real.
when it
Yeah. When it's there in front of you, and you're in
Yes.
it in the
Day in
fight.
and day out.
statistically, that is like the number one reason for sick calls in corporate America is not for kids, it's for an elderly loved one.
Wow, that is
Interesting.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so Jenny, say your website one more time.
CASCC.me.
.me. And your book, The Unexpected Leader, can be found on Amazon.
Yes, on Amazon.
Number one
and
bestseller.
It hit number one.
how
Yeah,
cool
it
is
hit number
that?
one
Amazing.
bestseller.
Love it.
Jenny, this has been so great.
Oh, you guys, thank
are
you
a
so much for
star.
having me.
You bet.
I
Thanks.
was
love
so
it.
nervous to come and like, oh, really fun.
This was so fun. It was great. We'll do it again. We'll check back
Yep.
in a year or so and see how things are going.
Perfect.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Thanks.